where the will be speaking?
Yeah, just right here at the microphone. Okay. We'll get started any second. Thank you very much for coming.
So you know that Justice Ginsburg, she was Jewish. So there's some here, Elise, and they're going to say something from the Jewish community.
At this point, yeah, they all went together.
Everyone, welcome to our commemoration for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is a sad moment, and this is a moment of joy. And it's important to remember both of those things together as we commemorate this mural that was created by our community with the leadership, the talent, and the guidance of Adri Norris, who is here with us. There she is, so be sure to say something to Adri. She is our community leader. In addition, I forgot to say, I'm Kathy Finland, and I'm chair of the Board of History Colorado. I am also chair of the governor's appointed Colorado Women's Vote Centennial Commission that celebrated the ratification of the 19th Amendment. So all of you who are here today, we welcome you on behalf of those two organizations, our state of Colorado, our city of Denver. I want to thank the former Lieutenant Governor Donna Lynn, and Donna Lynn stepped up and gave us an enormous grant to do all of this programming around RBG. And Donna is currently the Chief Operating Officer at Columbia, and she got her doctorate at Columbia, and as you recall, RBG graduated from law school at Columbia, and so that is that wonderful connection. In addition, I want to also acknowledge the Bonfi Stanton Foundation, which gave us support for the mural, and also Fred Blick, who also stepped in to help us, and then particularly the City and County of Denver for their very gracious help in so many kind of core elements of today, particularly giving us this street, which, as you know, isn't the easiest thing to do. So with that, I want to proceed to thank all of those people, and we have about 20 minutes of speaking from different leaders in our community or people who have benefited greatly from the impact of RBG. And so find a shady spot to stay with us and to hear their story. Each one of them will speak in a modest amount in order to make this moment so special for all of us. So with that, I want to introduce Rabbi Rahel Cobra, and she is from, I want to say this properly, Congregation Rodef Shalom, and she is going to provide a prayer for us as we start our commemoration.
Thank you so much. When Justice Ginsburg's rabbi spoke at her memorial at the Capitol last week, Rabbi Lauren Holtzblatt began with a verse from Torah. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice, you will pursue. A picture of this quote hangs in Justice Ginsburg's chambers. As Rabbi Holtzblatt said, the word tzedek, justice, is pronounced twice for a reason. Our text says, justice, justice, you will pursue. It's telling us don't pursue justice when it's simple, when it's easy. Pursue justice always. When it is inconvenient, when it is hard, when it is frustrating, pursue justice all of your days. Justice Ginsburg did precisely that. With brilliance, with heart, with a tenacity and determination that set a remarkable example for all of us. Justice Ginsburg charted a course without role models, without any proof that what she strived for would work. She relied on her incredible will, on her righteous fury, on determination. A prophet in our time. She taught us that when the world gives you misogyny, when the world gives you homophobia, when the world gives you hate, when people insist on walls and lies instead of truth and opportunity, it is then that we take hold of our sacred obligation to say, I dissent. Dissents speak to a future age, said Justice Ginsburg. It's not simply to say my colleagues are wrong and I would do it another way. But the greatest dissents do become court opinions, and gradually, over time, their views become the dominant view. So that's the dissenters' hope, that they are writing not for today, but for tomorrow. The Nitivot Shalom, a Jewish Hasidic commentary on the Torah, wrote about a house that is eroding at its roots. The owner will struggle to make it look okay, to patch up the walls, to create cover-ups. But we all know that cover-ups will not last when there are real cracks in the foundation. When Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg began fighting for this nation, she knew that the foundation of our country had deep, profound cracks. A country founded on a place for white men in leadership, a place for white women in the home, and a place for people of color in servitude. But Justice Ginsburg was committed to working for real repair, not cover-ups, not paint jobs, real repair, because she believed in us. She believed in humanity. She believed that in the end, the arc of history would bend, that we could make it bend through hard work toward justice. And that is all of our jobs now. That is the legacy that we have inherited. Tomorrow has arrived today. And so we say, Zichrono Livracha. May we make the memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Yitza Rahel Bat Siralea, a profound blessing. I'm now going to recite the memorial prayer in honor of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Amalei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzam Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanpei Shechina, Bamalot Kedoshim Utorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Yitza Rachel Bat Siralea, Shahalacha Olama, Bagan Eden Tehe Menuchata, Ana Rachamim, Hasdireha Beseter Kanfecha Leolamim, Utzror Bitzror Chachayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachlata, B'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava B'nomar. Exalted God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in life, and may she rest in peace. And we say together, Amen.
Now I would like to introduce our Colorado State Attorney General, Phil Weiser, who has been instrumental in these programs and the connections to all the people who are speaking. and who also has clerked for the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Kathy, I want to acknowledge your leadership in understanding we needed this. That as we reflect on the memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it's important, as Rabbi Cobra said, that her memory be for a blessing. And how it's for a blessing is how we remember her, is that we remember her. And what you and Steve and others leading this fine institution are doing, talking about a legacy of empowering women, it is most appropriate that today we honor the person who's become known as the notorious RBG. And what Justice Ginsburg teaches all of us is we must persist. We must ask not how the world is and why isn't. We must ask how might the world be and why not. That teaching comes to us from Robert Kennedy. And it's a teaching that Justice Ginsburg deeply understood. Because when she started on this journey towards equality and justice for all, it was not the case that women were treated equally to men. In fact, it is still not the case that women are treated equally to men. You just have to look at issues around equal pay, around treatment of women in the workplace and in society. It's clear we still have work to do. And what I would add from Scripture is what it says in Ethics of Our Fathers, which is you don't have the assignment to repair the world by yourself, but you're not free to desist from doing your part. And what Justice Ginsburg never lost sight of is the question, what is my part in working towards a more perfect union? And she found her part. She found it by refusing to be silenced. When she first appeared before the Supreme Court, she was asked by Justice Rehnquist, so you wouldn't just settle for Susan B. Anthony on the dollar bill? And what the arc of her work tells us, and this is really important, is we don't demonize people along the way. We don't take the bait and rise to anger. Instead, we must remember a spirit of grace and inclusion. And so those who might not immediately see the logic of equality for all based on who you love, or what gender you are, or what religion you are, be patient. Because Justice Rehnquist, who asked that very question at oral argument, joined Justice Ginsburg in the VMI opinion that allowed women to enter that military academy that formerly was walled off to women. And Justice Ginsburg famously built a relationship with Justice Antonin Scalia. And once a clerk asked Justice Scalia, why are you sending flowers to Justice Ginsburg? She never votes with you. You know what Justice Scalia said? He said, because some things are more important than votes. And in this moment of great polarization, of great demonization, Justice Ginsburg's legacy calls on us to be our best authentic selves, which means not to demonize others, but to instead take the long game of seeing everybody as someone who we can learn from, who we can engage with as we work together to form a more perfect union. It's not easy to do this work, but our democracy depends on everyone being on the field. What we need to learn from Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is all of us can do great things. And I'll tell you, she pushed me to be better than I thought I could, as a lawyer, as a person, as a husband. And so the memory that I would ask all of you to keep with you is this question of what would RBG do? What would she ask of us? And what I can say the answer is to be our best authentic selves. And if we can rise to that challenge, our nation will continue to have its moral arc bend towards justice. But that's on all of us. And so please, don't lose heart. Don't get discouraged. Instead, take this memory, cherish it, be inspired by it, and do the important work of being a citizen of these great United States of America. Thank you very much.
I now would like to introduce Colorado Supreme Court Justice Melissa Hart.
If I had thought through the fact that I was going to have to follow a rabbi and a politician, I'm not sure I would have agreed to stand up here. But I'm here now. So Phil Weiser and I have known each other since he was clerking for Justice Ginsburg and I was clerking for Justice Stevens in, I guess it was 1996. And as a result of our both having known Justice Ginsburg, we've been asked to do this sort of thing a few times in the past week. And I have to say it's getting harder, not easier. I realized this morning there was a high likelihood that I would cry today because this loss is very heavy. For me as a person, for me as a judge, Justice Ginsburg really is a hero. And as I've been sort of thinking about the different ways that she's affected my life, I didn't know it at the time, but I actually fell in love with the law and decided to pursue a career in law because of Justice Ginsburg. I was raised by a single mom who was also a lawyer and worked all the time, and so a career in the law was not something that looked in any way interesting to me. But I was a very strong feminist. I was a women's studies major in college, and I was doing a paper about women in the workplace, and there was an opinion, a judicial opinion that was relevant to what I was writing about, and I wanted to understand why the court had said what it said. So I went to the law library at Harvard, and this was before the internet, so I got books out off the shelf. 6 hours later, I was kicked out of the library because it was midnight, and I had 30 books piled up on this desk, having read back precedent, to understand why the law had developed the way it had. What I didn't know, but I later came to understand, is that many of the opinions that I read that night were shaped and argued by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She had changed the law, and in seeing the way that the law had changed and the way that it changed people's lives, my life was fundamentally altered because I knew that this was the direction that I needed to go. I needed to be part of the power and importance of the law. And that, I think, is what has struck me most over the past week as I have reflected on her life and on our collective loss. There is not a single person standing here right now or watching this wherever you might be whose life has not been fundamentally changed by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There is not a single man and not a single woman whose life is not different because of what Ruth Bader Ginsburg brought to our world. She changed how the law approached both men and women. Yes, she was a strong, proud, indomitable feminist who will be known and celebrated for what she did for us as women, but men's lives are different too. One of the things that Justice Ginsburg famously said is that men and women would be equal when they shared equal responsibility for raising the next generation. I think what she understood is that equality outside of the home can only happen when there's equality inside of the home. And her relationship famously reflected a depth of equality that few of us could ever imagine, that we should all be aspiring for. I have a 15-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter, and one of the things that I'm happy about is that they have equally opportunity to succeed outside and inside of the home, and it is because of Justice Ginsburg that is true. Justice Ginsburg became the notorious RBG when she wrote her dissenting opinion in Shelby County versus Holder, voting rights decision. The majority author of the Shelby County decision was Chief Justice John Roberts. And one of the things that I think is also remarkable about Justice Ginsburg, and is something that Attorney General Weiser mentioned, her relationship with Justice Scalia, is that even though Justice Roberts obviously disagreed with Justice Ginsburg in many decisions, and famously now in that decision, he said on the moment of her death, Justice Ginsburg was a tireless and resolute champion for justice. I think that's the thing that we should all remember, is she never stopped fighting for a world that looked better than it looks now, and that's something we can all be doing and we all need to be doing. I was asked whether I would be willing to wear my robe and wear a Justice Ginsburg type jabot today, and I realized I wasn't comfortable wearing my robe outside of my judicial responsibilities, but I hope people can see my Justice Ginsburg mask in which she is wearing her jabot. I miss her. I think we all miss her. Thank you for being here.
That was wonderful, Justice. I would like now to introduce a woman who has been a first during all these periods of time that we are referencing, who has led the way in politics, in the law, and in the Latino community. She has been extraordinary. So may I introduce Polly Baca.
I think I can speak a lot better without the mask, and I'm far enough away from everybody that we're all safe, right? It is such an honor, Kathy, thank you so much, and it's such an honor to be with all of you today to honor this amazing woman. You know, I didn't have the opportunity to ever meet Justice Ginsburg, but I did get the chance to see her in action when I was a guest at the court as a result, at a couple of the hearings, as a result of my friendship with Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And Justice Ginsburg and I are basically of the same generation. She was 8 years older than I am. And as a young girl, I also thought about becoming an attorney. And I actually did a report on it when I was in 9th grade in 1955. But I could only find 5 women in the entire United States that were attorneys, and they were all corporate attorneys. And that's not what I wanted. And so I turned my focus to the sciences, first to physics and then political science. But Justice Ginsburg did not. She persisted. She persisted in her dream to be an attorney. And she not only went to Harvard Law School, but she graduated from Columbia Law School in 1959. At the time, I was a freshman at Colorado State University. And Justice Ginsburg was amazing to have graduated from law school and become one of the few women as attorneys at that time. In 1963, when she discovered that her salary, she was teaching at Rutgers Law School, and she found out that her salary was less than that of her male colleagues. And so she joined an equal pay campaign with other women, and they actually succeeded in getting their complaint acknowledged, and their salaries were raised. Now, to tell you the truth, I encountered the same reality just a few years later in 1966, when I was the editor of a labor union newspaper and found out that my male colleague and assistant to me was getting paid $2,000 more than I was. That's the way it was in those days. Fortunately, I complained, and that year I got the highest raise in the union. But it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg that really went to bat for all of us. And she was, when she was litigating sex discrimination cases for the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, she was instrumental in launching its Women's Rights Project in 1973. And it was that project that laid the groundwork for numerous pieces of legislation, giving women like me and like all of you here today the opportunity to have equal protection under the law, including she fought for equal pay for equal work and the Equal Rights Amendment, which we passed in Colorado just a year before I was elected to the state legislature. And this year, by the way, this past year, Virginia state legislature and the governor signed the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment in their state. And if I know there are legal challenges, but that would complete the whole number of states that we need for the Equal Rights Amendment. And that happened before Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. And I'm sure she was so excited when that happened. We just have to pursue it and make sure that it happens throughout our country. As she said about the ERA, she said, the ERA would serve as a clear statement of the nation's moral and legal commitment to a system in which women and men stand as full and equal individuals before the law. You know, that's what it's all about. We're all equal, and the men here today celebrating RGB are here with us, and we thank you for being partners in this struggle for women to pursue their full rights in our democracy. I've been inspired by RGB and the Women's Rights Project, and RBG's influence what I did in the state legislature. And I was actually proud in 1980 to introduce the first equal pay for equal work in the Colorado legislature. Unfortunately, it didn't pass till just this past year, but we finally got it passed in Colorado and signed by the governor. So it was exciting when that happened. You know, her work has had a lasting effect on all of us, but we have to continue her work because there's still a lot of discrimination. And in the workplace, you know, she was also concerned about pregnant women in the workforce. You know, they didn't have the same rights and often didn't get a chance to work at a particular job, or they were fired because they were pregnant. You know, when I was elected to the state legislature in 1974, I didn't know I was pregnant. And when I found out, I had, you know, was looking for, well, my husband had just graduated from Dean Law School the previous spring, and we were without insurance for 6 months. And during that time, didn't know it, but I got pregnant. So after I got elected and tried to get insurance, no one would insure me because I had a pre-existing condition. I was pregnant. Kaiser actually was the only one that did, and I'm still with Kaiser because of that. But what Ruth Bader Ginsburg did, she was already working by that time with a coalition to end discrimination against pregnant workers, as she and the Women's Rights Project staff attorney, Susan Ross, co-authored a column for the New York Times, calling for Congress to amend the law. And they continued to lobby, and they fought, and they struggled, and the result of their efforts was the passage of the Pregnancy Discrimination Act in 1978, an amendment to Title VII that established that pregnancy discrimination in the workplace is unlawful sex discrimination. So you know, RBG got involved with every ounce of her strength and energy, and she did more in our country to help all of us, not just women but men as well, because equal rights is important to all of us, and she made a difference for all of us, and then ceased to exist. So isn't it important that we follow her example and get involved also with every ounce of energy that we have and continue to fight for the rights of all people, and inspired by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, make sure that we make a difference in our lives before we cease to exist. And isn't that what we should all do? Thank you so much for being here to honor RBG.
Now I have the great pleasure of introducing someone who represents our next generation. This person is a Denver Scholarship Foundation scholar. And Denver Scholarship Foundation scholars are students from Denver Public Schools, 2,000 of them who annually are receiving scholarships to go to Colorado colleges and universities. And this group of individuals all have financial need. Everyone, or 80% are first-generation students, 90% are students of color, and the persistence rate in terms of graduating is 2.5 times the national standard. They are incredible people. So I am proud to introduce a 2018 CU graduate who is Camille Moore, Camille applied to 15 colleges and was accepted at almost all of them. Camille has received a substantial number of scholarships so that she graduated almost debt-free. And Camille is now going to DU to law school to be our next new leader. So with that, Camille Moore.
I come before you as somebody that benefited from women like RBG. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado. As she said, I went to CU Boulder, and now I'm at the University of Denver Law. When I think about the night that I did discover that RBG had passed away, I got in a group of women that go to law school together. We talked about it, we cried, and the agreement at the end of that was that we would do something that she continued to push for us to do, which was when you see a door, to knock it down. So there's goals I have to be an attorney. I've wanted to be since 3rd grade. I think about the fact of I used to watch RBG, well, we call her Notorious RBG, and watch everything that she did, and was beyond thankful that she gave us every last inch that she had until the end. I more want to say, try not to cry. But I would say the biggest takeaway that I would say for the generation coming after RBG is that I want to do what she did, which is bring as many women, as many people of color, or any other thing that you identify as, and bring you to the next level. Because as she used to say, there's no point in moving and doing all of this if somebody behind you doesn't benefit from it. And I'd say thank you for all coming out and listening to me to speak. It's really hard, but I want to remember the woman that said, I deserve to be in every room that a decision is being made. So every time I have to read a case or have to do anything that's hard in law school, I remember she did it all and more and wasn't expected to get as far as she did. So I thank you for all coming out and listening. And the biggest hope I think that all of you take away from RBG is that this isn't the end of her legacy. And I'm sure gonna fight to make sure it's not. So thank you for coming out.